Hey guys, it's Bina, and in this video I will be showing you the planner that I have set up for the 300% movement speed farmer, which after a little bit of playing around, I decided that I am not going to be playing this in hardcore because it's just way too dangerous. Kind of like a good like softcore speed farmer if you want to go really fast, but the build does have some issues. While it might go at above 300% movement speed when you have the proper setup, it does lack in some areas. First of all, let's talk about the ramp up damage. So this is a Tornado Shaman build, which has a certain amount of ramp up time before you deal your full damage to enemies. So this is because Tornado has a certain duration, and so before you stack multiple tornadoes, you will have to like cast a few of them before you are able to kill enemies very quickly, because your damage is going to be only ramped up by the number of tornadoes that are casting their storm bolts at enemies. It also lacks in one other area where it relies on the sword, Shard of the Shattered Lance, to get a lot of movement speed, because it's a 20% more multiplier to your movement speed. So that makes it so that if there are certain maps that don't have many many rares in them, then that means that you do not get this huge 20% more movement speed, and so you're not really that much better than another build that does not use the Shard of Shattered Lance. Ideally, you would want to have a build that has just insane upfront damage, instantaneous damage, and is also melee, that actually uses the sword as its main source of damage instead of just trying to rely on it for the 20% more damage and 20% more movement speed. So as you can see, this is like about 300 corruption here. It's fast, but it's not really, you know, like it lacks in some area. It has good coverage, good everything, good AoE, but it's just ramp up time makes it so that even though you have a lot of movement speed, I don't think I want to play this. Also, it's kind of troll how we build it. With like we have problem capping endurance. We have problem capping resistances if we're not using certain setups. And I just think that the regular Tornado Shaman might actually be better. But if someone, or like, you know, I'm going to put this out for anyone that wants to play with a lot of movement speed. And you can apply this sort of setup to any other build you want. And I'll give you some other options as well. So let's go straight into the planner, which will be linked in this video in the description below. So let's go straight into the planner. Here, what I'm doing is I am using wrong warp to leverage the movement speed that we're getting. I've already went over this in my other video, so I won't go over everything here. I'm just gonna talk about why I'm not using this in hardcore. What are the weaknesses, and what I would, you know, what I would have liked for the build to have, basically. So we're stacking a lot of movement speed. There is a certain bug in the druid tree here. So Bush Stalker, held leech on crit 4%. This is not actually 4% leech on crit. I think it might be 4%, maybe increased leech, or maybe it is 0.4% leech, but it is definitely not 4% leech. And this is why I kind of have to go with a Tusked Great Helm to get 3% leech on top of having Hunger of the Void. There's another option if you want to go with a unique version of this glove. You would go with, first, if you want to go with absolute trolling movement speed, you can go with Fighting Chance for 10 movement speed and up to 5 to 10% increased damage taken. So Fighting Chance is another option to get even more movement speed. But there is the Blood Mage Gloves that gives you 4% spell crit chance on top of 1% spell leech. So this is another really good option if you want to, like, you know, leech and have a little more crit. But we already have a lot of crit with all of our Maelstrom stacks, and then with Gladiator, with the stacks in Maelstrom for Beneath the Waves that you just cast. It casts like a few Maelstrom stacks every time that you cast it. So this is gonna cap your critical strike chance on top of having your Maelstroms always proccing with Warcry here. So you get double Warcry each time you do it, because even though there's only 5% chance to do it again on every time that you have the cooldown up, we have so many hits that it doesn't matter. It always procs, and then you get, you know, double the Maelstrom stacks here. So that is an option with the gloves. Another option with the belt here would be going for movement speed. There's a couple things. It's very hard to cap your endurance. So the way that I'm doing it here is going with the blessing. So this is kind of trolling because you want to go with the armor blessing usually to get like the big armor. So this is kind of like the reason why you have too many problems capping your res, capping your endurance. Yeah, you also want to have your endurance because you're using this node here. Endurance threshold per maelstrom. You get 20 endurance threshold per maelstrom. With this specific setup as well, where you're using Storm Totem for the movement speed, also for increased lightning damage. You cannot use the Spriggan Companion, which if you would use a Spriggan Companion, it would give you critical strike avoidance, it would give you base crit chance, it would give you spell damage. It will also give you a lot of dodge rating per attunement, flat dodge, which would be increased by your sleet-footed in Maelstrom. So this setup, honestly, is a softcore setup. It's a softcore blaster. If you want to play this with giga movement speed, you can play this like this, getting movement speed on your idols and stuff like this. But for hardcore, which is what I'm playing, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I think just playing the regular Tornado Shaman with the good setup, with the mountain boots, you know, like with the Mad Alchemist ladle, like I think it would just make more sense. I think it would just make more sense. Also here, if you're not using these gloves, then where do you get frailty? You might get it on here, but if you get frailty on a 1x2 idol, then you cannot use this 1x4. So you don't get the 5% movement speed. So yeah, it's always a trade-off, right? It's always a trade-off. You could also use on the belt. There is this other belt here, the Thorn Slinger, which will give you +1 to physical skills, which will give you +1 to Maelstrom, +1 to Tornado, which would be pretty good. But then it's only 6% movement speed. 6 versus 8 for the Exalted, versus 10% movement speed for Ward Trail if you want to use Ward Trail. Where's Ward Trail? Ward Trail. 10% movement speed. So it's always a trade-off. It's always an opportunity cost. And it's, yeah, you could also use Nihilist to get, you know, all res and then get some movement speed as well. But then you're not getting all this 15% increased lightning damage per active Maelstrom, which you're getting like between 20, 30 plus at all times. Yeah, it's, so this is the setup. You are tanky enough for softcore for sure, but you will die at times. And, you know, you need to scale your mana regen and stuff. Yeah. So the basic setup on a crazy movement speed is going to be any 1x4 idols with movement speed. If you can be transformed, it would be even better because transform, you get up to 10% movement speed while transformed instead of 5. So that is for move speed. Shard of Shadowlands, 20% more movement speed. The belts we already talked about. The gloves we already talked about. Arboreal Circuits can give up to 18% movement speed. So these are like absolutely crazy, and they don't remove your dash, and they don't make your dash clunky. Kind of like Flames of Midnight. You get Swiftness for 20% movement speed, but this makes your dash a little bit less smooth. The Razorfall boots, they also have an implicit of increased effective haste on you. So you can get this on top of movement speed and effective haste, on top of having just a general good base for movement speed of 38%. So these are like crazy boots for movement speed. If you want to go fast, make sure to use these boots. And yeah, we already talked about Nihilus, but there's also, if you want to be a transform build, you can use Chimera's Essence, 12% increased movement speed while transformed, or you can also get Tears of the Forest for movement speed while transformed, 8% only. But like Chimera's Essence gives you a big chunk of increased damage, but it gives you minus resistances, right? There's a few options. I think this build is fine for softcore, kind of trolling for hardcore. Just wanted to put it out there since I was gonna play this, but I don't think I will after weighting all the pros and cons. I think there are more cons for hardcore than pros, so I'll probably try something else. And once I find it, I will surely share it with you guys, because I do love speed. I do think there is quite a bit of good things that you can do, that you can farm with speed, without needing to go super high in corruption, especially in hardcore. So I'll keep you guys up to date, but that's going to be the update for the 300 plus movement speed farmer on Tornado, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.